Okay, we'll go ahead and start showing the assignment that we have here. And apologies, I don't want to do too much with editing the video, so I've got you on the right side of my screen, and so I'll be showing you everything from over on this side and then just kind of following along with the assignment as well. So some of the first assignments that we did started with the actual design. So here you can see the attributes that we did, and the entities and the relationship, I guess the rough outline of the relationships. And so this one's one of the first one that we started with in the conceptual assignment, and then going over to, we started with some more of like the logical assignments, and then as you start to see, they start to obviously take a little bit more shape later on into the semester, and you can see that obviously the amount of information that we have from here to here is quite a bit more and a lot more in depth, and you can see that the more that we start to actually fine tune the assignment, you can see that it starts to become quite messy. So something that I've kind of learned with this is that it's almost better to use some sort of online tool or some sort of online interface where I was using my tablet here to write out all of this stuff. Um, and so that's why you kind of, on this one at least, you've got like that break, but this one is long ways up and down, but it's very limited as this was just fully done on my tablet. Um, and so yeah, so it starts to get quite messy. A lot of the relationships and the connections start to become a little muddy, mixed in. Um, there were a few things that I saw after I had submitted these assignments that I thought were good ideas, such as um, rather than having like an intersection like this to kind of, I guess, bridge, some people would actually do like an arch to show that those weren't connected in any way. And so that's something I'd probably do moving forward. But again, I think if you had some sort of interface where you could go as far up, down, left, right, diagonal, it would save a lot of like mixed up lines and messy data from just presenting in this way. Um, and so after that, we go on to um, actually starting to implement the assignment. So we create the database here um, as the LMS, and so the first few assignments that we had submitted, it started with like I think it was 10 of the tables, designing uh, designing those tables and actually starting to implement them. Um, and so one thing that I had learned that I probably already knew about, but either I forgot or never cared to pay attention to, which is something I do need to work on, is entering in the primary key first. Um, and so I'm sure if we go through these at some point, we'll probably see one that doesn't have the primary key first. So there's one right there that doesn't have the primary key first. And so knowing what I know now after what you've taught me, definitely plan to keep the primary key as one of the very first when creating these tables. Um, and so I'm aware I can go back and change that and update it, but at this point, it's better for future knowledge, which I did use for these ones, going based off of what you had recommended. And so that made it quite a bit better. Um, and so yeah, so we went through a lot of the things that I learned were based around um, you know the actual way that we designed the assignments. So one example that I can give you, um, as we were going through and writing out phase three, um, the way that I had originally designed the database actually didn't work for a lot of these queries. So I had to go back through, add in a few more columns, go through and remove some other columns that just became redundant with some of the new columns that I had done. And so I did keep track of all of those as much as I possibly could. And so you can see from my assignments here, I'll bring this over here so you can kind of see what we're doing. Some of the more recent ones that we were working on, so you can see here that we started to insert a lot more values, creating more tables, inserting some more, just to keep doing the same thing, what felt like over and over again. And so here on this assignment, I mean, this one we're obviously kind of going backwards a little bit, but we had gone through, created the tables. Specifically, this one was already created, but I had to go back, redo it, and then again, these are the sections that you had left a comment regarding, saying you should be putting the primary key at the top of these tables as you're creating them. And so most of these had already been that way, but you can see some of them weren't. So going back through later on, I had done what I can to try and do exactly that. This table obviously doesn't have a primary key. It kind of more so uses course ID and student ID, because obviously the idea is that a student can only take one course, hopefully ever, assuming they don't have to retake the course. But even retaking the course, the idea is that it should remove the previous time that you attended, and so on and so forth. But that's obviously just lost in the weeds of it all. But yeah, and then you can see here from the final project that we had submitted, or the final draft for project phase 3. So yeah, so some of these queries were obviously very simple to do, simple to go through, nothing too crazy to do. And one thing that I would like to know that, or I would like to think that this course was designed to do, is obviously keep in mind the structure and the architecture of what it is that we're designing as we're building. But also, a lot of it has to do, I like to think that a lot of it has to do with, the way that we format the code, because, or I guess the queries, because it was just something that I didn't care much about up until my current job and taking this class at the same time. I was able to learn a lot of troubleshooting techniques, ways to fine-tune different queries, so on and so forth. And one of the easiest ways to be able to do that is based around the way that you structure them. So it may not be as prevalent now as it was in the very beginning. I'm not sure if I have anything here that really kind of shows how different I used to be with doing these. I guess they look pretty similar still. But in my mind, the way that I now write these queries is a lot cleaner. Like, I don't think it's necessary to indent join or on, but I think if you're joining multiple tables, it kind of helps differentiate from the from clause to the join, and then what it is that join is joining those on. And while it may seem already to be common knowledge that right after join you have the on clause, I like the indentation because it kind of helps me see quickly if things aren't, down here, for example. It helps me see quickly if things aren't working out and exactly where those errors are coming from or whatever other issues. So yeah, there's a lot of things that I never knew about with this course that I learned a lot about. CTEs were something that I learned in my current career, and that was the first time that I had ever been exposed to them. And then within a month or two after, you were introducing us to the CTEs, and the querying data frames and such. And I think the combination of both of those helped me really understand exactly what these clauses do and the efficiency of database architecture. Another big thing that I learned through this class is actually that, and especially this assignment, is that even though you may have all of these things to go through and use to design the database, you start to notice that as you're going through and actually writing out the code for these, you start to learn that there's a lot of holes in you know in the database architecture for what I specifically had developed. And so one thing that I would want to do in my future career is try to fully understand the assignment that is being asked, and then even ask for specific examples of, like, okay, what type of information is it that you have to store in these databases? What is it that we're going to be doing? And if I had done what I was supposed to with this project, that would have been very clear the moment I read through phase 3, exactly what it is that's going to be taking place in the future. But I had only read through the phases as the assignments were being presented, and so that was a hole in my understanding with designing these databases. Clearly just shows a lack of attention to detail from my end, and it's something that I do plan to fix moving forward. And yeah, I mean, but overall it was very helpful, helped me learn a lot, because I was able to go back and forth between looking at the overall architecture, implementing, and then specifically not just patching different holes in the database or different bugs that weren't present or that I didn't think were going to be present, but actually going to actively look for those types of bugs and issues and holes. And so I think overall this class was great for showing me exactly how to do this, and I definitely look forward to anything else.